Okay, if the camera is really wiggly today, I do apologize. My computer does not work. I cannot get it to connect to the internet anymore. So I'm recording on my phone and have been, and it makes it really hard to hold the camera sort of steady for long periods of time. So please bear with me. But today I wanted to talk about OCD and how I overcame OCD without any help from a therapist, counselor, no medication. Yeah, so it was a journey, and it's not something that I had my whole life or anything. It was like newly presented in the last 2 years. It was a result, or at least I found out, it was a result of long-term abuse, emotional abuse, just chaos, high stress. If you think about it, like, we have lifetimes of trauma, of stuff from childhood, of adult relational things, everything sort of piled in our invisible backpack that we carry around with us each and every single day. And what had ended up happening for me was my invisible backpack of repressed emotions, trauma, internal struggles, repressed pieces of who I really am as a person, all of these things that we, unknowingly filled this backpack with, it began to overflow. It was like too much for me to process, too much for me to handle. And this sort of resulted in mental health struggles. And so roughly 2 years ago, I presented with very alarming, like out of nowhere negative thoughts. And when I say very alarming, it was like the content of these thoughts was not typical to what I would normally think. And I had no idea why they were there, how they showed up. But the thoughts would be so jarring and jolting sometimes that I would like almost seize up inside, and have this like intense emotional reaction to the thought because it was just so out of character for me. And it felt like the more I reacted to the thoughts, the more thoughts came. And so I, in an attempt to get rid of them, began to follow like Christianity and, they will often teach like, oh, battle it. It's a spiritual warfare. Battle it, battle it. Well, when you're battling spiritual warfare, what you're doing is you're pushing against it. And so I was pushing and praying and trying to fast it away. Like, I was doing everything and nothing helped. And in fact, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so I was like, what is going on? Like, I felt at the mercy of this condition. I didn't even know what it was. It was just like thoughts. And these thoughts, if you have OCD, like your thoughts can be anything from thoughts of like unaliving yourself, thoughts of unaliving other people, thoughts of doing terrible things, thoughts of hatred, and just of like a really dark nature, towards other people or even yourself. And because of the nature of these thoughts, your emotional response is huge when they come in. It's almost like you cling to the thought because it's so alarming. And then you have this emotional response. And so it felt almost like possession followed by, what do you call it when they, possession, and then where they like free you from possession. I don't know why I just had a complete boop, like my brain just went empty. Anyways, off topic. Okay. So yeah, it was really scary. And the reason why I say possession is because it felt like these thoughts are not typical to me. These are not my normal thoughts. So because of the weird nature of these thoughts, they were like coming in almost seemingly from somewhere else. And that's what made it feel like it was an attack, like demonic attack. But in reality, it's not. And so I want you to tune in and listen, really. I had no idea what OCD was. I always thought it was like people who touch doorknobs 5 times, maybe like a superstitious sort of thing, a little bit of paranoia. I had no idea. And it wasn't until I had been fighting against and trying to replace these thoughts with positive ones and done all this brain retraining and and like nothing was working, that I began really Googling these symptoms and diving in and reading and researching, that I found that it was actually a symptom of OCD. And so, which sort of blew my mind because I was like, I'm not touching doorknobs. Like this, I don't have OCD, but clinically, like I did. And because it just showed up suddenly, I was like, this can't be. But I want to make this kind of a short video. I don't want to go on for too long. But what I began doing was just consistent. Like I wouldn't give up. I couldn't go to counseling. I didn't have money for a therapist. I had no way to go get this professionally checked out or, fixed. And I've also researched and understood that a lot of people just go on medication. Like it doesn't actually resolve, which wasn't okay with me. I was like, I'm not going to be on medication. I want this gone. I want this fixed. I don't want to be one of those people that depends on a pill in order to make my brain feel okay. So I didn't give up. I kept pushing, I kept researching, I kept digging. And that's when I came across a video by Teal Swan. Now she's a spiritual teacher, and I was Googling like what to do with really negative thoughts, and she had a totally different approach, which kind of surprised me. Instead of fighting them, instead of praying them away, replacing them with positive thoughts, pushing them away, or even fearing them, she suggested that you allow them with curiosity. And I'm like, well, I haven't tried that yet, because it was scary, and you're almost like second nature is to push it away, or to fix it, or to make it stop. So her theory was like, just sit with curiosity and allow the thoughts, allow them to come in, no matter how terrible. Don't judge the thoughts, don't push them away, just allow them to be. And I'll remember one day I came home from the park with my kids, and it had been a really rough day. I couldn't be present. I was all over the place mentally. And I came across her video on the way home, listened to the whole thing, laid down on the couch when I got home, and I just began allowing. And I started to notice a theme. My thoughts were really angry, a bit of despair, a bit of hopelessness, but angry at myself and angry towards other people. There was little hints of hate, rage, all sorts of things in there. And I was like, there's an underlying emotional content to these thoughts. And then upon a little bit more digging, I knew I was struggling. I had like severe CPTSD from abuse and just loads of trauma. And so it was like, well, that makes sense. But I was still afraid of those emotions. I was afraid of digging into them. I didn't really know how. And then, so I started digging into like the emotional end of it. How do we process these emotions? How do we address them? If they're triggering our thoughts, like what do we do about it? And that's when I was introduced to, the art of allowing. Not only allowing the thoughts, but allowing the emotions, and how important it is for processing dense, heavy emotions. And then, so, some people call like shadow work. Carl Jung, who is a, psychologist, I'm not sure during what time period, but he's absolutely incredible. His work is phenomenal. I highly recommend that you look into his theories and concepts, because it literally like saved me. So his theory is that, the backpack I talk about, that we fill with all these repressed emotions and parts of us and whatever, well, those things become our shadow. And most of us spend our lifetimes running from our shadows. These are parts of us that we've disowned. These are the rough emotions that we've never processed. But what ends up happening is, after so long, our shadow becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and more powerful until we can't ignore it anymore. And that's sort of what this was. And your shadow is not evil. It's not bad. It's not like a terrible entity chasing you down, but it is a part of you. And so learning how to integrate our shadow, how to allow our shadow, how to process those emotions that are making our shadow so intense and scary to us. And in doing that, we can alleviate not only physical body symptoms, disease, but mental health issues as well. And so I was experiencing physical health issues too at this time, but the most worrisome and troublesome thing was the OCD, because it was like taking over my thinking, which was causing me to not be able to function. I felt like I had lost my mind. And so diving into the emotions. So it wasn't until then that I began to understand that by harboring all of these intense emotional charges in my body, unprocessed emotions, it was triggering all of these things to go wrong inside of me. And it's done not to like harm you or hurt you, but in an attempt to get your attention. You know, we fear symptoms. We fear mental health issues. We fear anything going wrong in our body because we feel helpless to it. And then oftentimes we get angry at our body for like betraying us and causing us harm and whatever. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's trying to do. It is nothing more than these suppressed emotions going, hey, I need you to pay attention to me. Listen. And so we ignore, we repress, we ignore until we can't anymore. And that was sort of what happened in my case. And so learning to be with my emotions, the steps that I started to take was this. I would set time periods every day, whenever I could, as often as I could, but start small, 10, 15 minutes every day. And I would wake up before everybody else, set my alarm. I would, before my mind would go crazy and I would get busy in my day because I had like no time to be me. I was mom and everything else on top of dealing with this. And so I would go into my body immediately. So close your eyes. I would be laying in bed and I would feel how my back would feel against the bed. I would feel how the pillow feels under my head. I would feel my toes, the sensations in my toes. So I would do like a body scan to sort of drop me into my physical body. And then once I felt more grounded in my body and out of my thoughts, then I would just be in my body and stay in my body, and whatever sensations would come up inside of me, I would allow them to be there without judgment, without going, oh, these are bad, without going into my head and going, oh, I got to label these. I need to know where they came from. What is this? Oh, this is anger. Like, you don't have to do any of that. Just stay grounded in your body and allow the energy to move. And for me, sometimes it felt like a twisting in my gut, like my lower gut area, but usually I felt it in my chest. And it felt like a burning, like an intense, like I can't even explain it. It's a terrible feeling. When you are doing this, it's quite literally going to feel like you are walking through hell. Like I'm not exaggerating. It feels like hell. And so being with that super strong charge, this is where most times people would go, oh, I can't do that. It's too much. And you distract. Don't distract. Be with it and be with it. Offer it love. Like this was another thing that I would start to do if it got really intense. I would talk to myself in like third person and go, it's totally understandable why you're feeling all of this. You have been through so much. And it was really hard to work through. Like I would just think really nice things to myself. Like, it's okay. You are safe. It's okay to feel this. Like, and imagining and understanding what the process is, it helps you to be with it. So what it is emotions are energy in motion. But when we repress them, they get trapped in our body. They can't complete their energetic charge because we're pushing them away. So by being with them, they're going to like burn away. And at this point, we have so much repressed that it's like just jumbled. You could be feeling grief, rage, sadness, frustration, fear, everything all at the same time. And it just feels so intense. But by being with it and being compassionate towards it and understanding that that's what it needs to do, it needs to complete that feeling so it can be like released. That's key. So by doing this 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long, and then I would get up and start my day. Like, okay, no more. Time for a break. I would try to stay as positive as I can, like just go about my day as usual, and maybe midday or whatever, I would like sit down and take a little break and I would go, okay, I'm going to allow right now. What am I feeling? And I would drop into my body and I would do it again. And the cool thing is you can kind of control when you're allowing it and when you're not. So, if you need to only do it 5 minutes at a time, do it 5 minutes at a time. But what I started to notice was after like the first week, it was like, oh, hell, like this feeling. And then it would go away. And then like, oh, I'm allowing, oh my God. And it's like the intensity would slow down a little bit. And then I would have days where I would wake up chipper, cheery, not flooded with anxiety. At this time, my nervous system was so dysregulated, like I couldn't breathe. Like I felt like I would be like drowning in air, like like can't take a deep breath. I was constantly gasping for air. Like my nervous system was shot. My mental health was shot. My physical health was gradually and steadily falling apart. And so this was like a last ditch effort because I had tried everything else. I had tried the power of positive thinking. I had tried brain retraining. I have tried, like battling it with prayer and, going like that whole spiritual warfare, like, oh, let me get my sword and battle this. Like, no, none of it worked until I began allowing, because we have to let this charge complete itself. And this is how we do the shadow work. This is integrating our shadow. It's taking all of the stuff that we stuffed over here and going, you know what? You're allowed to be here. You're allowed to be here. I don't need to understand you. I don't need to label you. I don't need to fix you. I don't need to change you. You can be here. And in understanding that repressed rage, that repressed hatred, that repressed anger, those boundaries that were crossed, like being mistreated, all resulted in not being able to process any of this. And usually when you're in a situation where you feel fear or danger, you repress these things and you very quickly just want it to go away. So sometimes we brush things under the rug. It's okay. We forgive when we should be drawing boundaries, and then we become angry at ourselves and angry at other people for mistreating us, and then angry at ourselves for tolerating it. And so we have all this stuff going on inside of us that doesn't get processed. And so we have to understand that whatever's there is there. It's not to be labeled bad or good. It's not to be condemned. It's not to be fought against. It just is. So by allowing what is without judging it or needing it to go away, it naturally dissipates. And so it was all of those repressed emotions from being, abused and in chaotic, toxic situations that were perpetuating these really dark, negative thoughts. And you wouldn't think that they would be connected, but they very much are. The emotion feeds the thoughts. It like gives the thoughts like the flavor. And then that's like your body's last ditch effort to get your attention. So it's not that there's something like diabolically wrong with you. It's that your body, these emotions are going, hey, I need your attention. I'm going to hijack your mind, hijack your thoughts to get your attention so that you tune in and allow. And so I would have like really great days, and then it's like it would come back and I would feel like more of an emotional charge again. And so by continually allowing every single day, whether allowing joy and happiness or allowing frustration, allowing fear, allowing anxiety, allowing panic attacks, allowing grief, allowing rage, doesn't matter. By allowing whatever is there for that day and doing this, it's not a one and done. This is something that you could do for years and still have stuff coming up. But I'm telling you, within a week of doing this, my gut issues disappeared and the OCD was completely gone. My brain did not have to flag me anymore. It didn't have to go, hey, I need your attention. There's something you're not looking at. I want you to imagine like a shadow standing behind you, tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, 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 and it's like you're not paying attention. So it goes into your mind and says, hey, you need to listen to me now. I'm going to interrupt your thinking so that you can't ignore me anymore. So I feel like a lot of psychologists and counselors have no idea how to really like treat OCD. They're so quick to, here's a medication, here's something else. And what these do is they further suppress the issue. We are taught to push against everything that's uncomfortable and only allow the good. Well, in doing this, we've made ourselves sick. And so by allowing the discomfort, allowing the pain, allowing the symptoms, allowing the mental turmoil, we begin to heal. So this is exactly the process that I did to allow whatever needed to be felt, and I'm still doing it. I do it every single day because I understand what it's doing for not only like my psyche, for my soul, but for my physical body, for my mental health, for everything. And it's a process. You have to be so, so patient with this process because it's not always quick. Sometimes you can go around and around and around and around for months and months and months until you feel later, and you start to notice, oh, wow, this is gone. That's gone. Now I don't have this. For me, it was like my gut issues, my heart palpitations. I was able to breathe again. I wasn't gasping for air all the time. My nervous system started to regulate. My OCD symptoms were gone. I didn't have panic attacks anymore. Depression started to lift. My physical, like my joint pain, I had severe arthritis, joint pain and autoimmune symptoms began to go away. Literally everything started to correct itself because symptoms in your body, regardless of how you want to name them, whether it's autoimmune, cancer, arthritis, gut issues, diverticulitis, gout, doesn't matter what it is. It's just pent up energy in your body going, hey, pay attention to me. And the energy comes from the emotional body. And the emotional body needs our assistance because of all the trauma and the repression that we've been doing our entire lives. So learning to allow and not fear these things is key. It is key, regardless of what you're battling right now. But that is how I cured my OCD. With no medications, no trips to a counselor. This is something that I researched and learned and taught and was able to do totally on my own by myself and saw relief very quickly. But I will say, when you are being with those emotions, it feels like hell, absolute hell. But I remember during this process, my kids would watch shows on YouTube, and it was subliminal messaging to me. God was going, hey, pay attention to this, because it would be everywhere. This stupid song where it's you can't go over it, you can't go around it, or whatever. And it's you have to go through it. And that's exactly the key. You can't go over it. You can't go around it, meaning you can't avoid processing this. You can't avoid the hell. But when you go through it, you are healing. And that is the key to healing. Not trips to the doctors, not medication, not a psychiatrist. Doing this process will heal you. Guaranteed. So take my word for it. I am living proof, and I am not some wonderful human being that's an exception to the rule. I am the rule. And so I want to come on here and show you guys just how profound this is. 6, 7, 8 months ago, I couldn't get off the couch. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I thought I was dying. I was very close to death, actually, a couple times. My system was just so knocked out by all of the stuff going on. I was a very sick person. And now, I'm not. The healing is profound. And this is without doctors, without a million diagnoses and a million. I mean, I've been there. I've had all the tests done. I've done it all. But it's doing this was life-changing. And so if you are looking to heal anything, chronic anxiety, depression, mental health stuff, physical health stuff, I don't care what it is. This is the answer, and this is the only answer. I'm living proof of that. So I love you guys. I can't wait to share more content with you, and I will be back soon.